Hey everybody, welcome back once again to another episode of The Art of Photography. My name is Ted Forbes, and today we have something kind of special, I think, planned for you. And I haven't really ever done kind of a themed show, but as the year is winding down here and we're getting towards the holidays, I thought it might be kind of fun to actually do a Christmas-themed show. And this was a little harder to put together than I thought. In the last couple of weeks, we've been doing a lot of photo history, photo lit stuff with well-known photographers, maybe lesser-known photographers who are still very important in the great work of photography. And I think this year I thought it might be kind of fun to put together a little set of images that were all Christmas themed in nature. Something that's a little more whimsical, a little less serious, and we're going to have fun with that today. And you know how I am, I tend to get over analytical with composition stuff, but I hope I don't do too much of that today. But I do have some images that I found that were pretty cool that I want to share. The idea for this came, I'm on many mailing lists, and I've got this really cool postcard from the Wittliff Collection. If you're not familiar with the Wittliff Collection, they are a photography museum collection that's part of the university down in San Marcos, Texas. Small town, but a wonderful photography collection. And this year they have these two deer on their Christmas card. This is a Keith Carter image. And if those of you who watch the show regularly know that I'm just enamored by Keith Carter. I think he is one of the most important photographers alive today. He's a brilliant photographer. If anybody knows Keith Carter, I would love to do an episode where I do an interview with him. I think he would be fantastic, and since he's in Texas as well. I'm getting beside the point and sidetracked, but it was a combination of this Christmas card that I got that was really cool. And I also, when I was researching the Diane Arbus episode that we did a couple weeks ago, I ran across some Santa Claus images that she shot that are really funky and out there and cool and just a lot of fun. And so what I've done is I put together a board on Pinterest, and I want to look at that today, and we're going to do a little analyzing and a little just having fun looking at images. And so this is my 12 days of Christmas, and originally it was going to be 12 images, and I found a couple more that I thought I'd just throw in anyway. So this is the 12 days of Christmas plus a few. So let's go on over and have a look. Okay, so on to the show here. We're going to look at some Christmas-related imagery that I found, and this was actually kind of a fun exercise, and I kind of challenge you guys to do this sometimes too. Obviously, it was, we're right on top of the holiday season right now, and I had this idea back when I was working on the Diane Arbus episode when I ran across some strange Santa photos that she had, and I thought it would be fun to do kind of a Christmas-themed deal. I am using Pinterest for this. If you guys aren't familiar with Pinterest, or you don't watch the show normally, this is generally where we keep boards of stuff that we're working on in the show. So if you go to pinterest.com/TedForbes, you'll see all my boards. And I love this because it's an excellent way of doing essentially imaging or bookmarking with images, which is amazing. Anyway, if you go all the way down to the bottom, the last board on here is always the latest, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the 12 Days of Christmas. Now, the original idea is that I would do something with 12 images since the title of the popular Christmas song, and this was actually kind of hard to do, and I ended up winding up with a few more than I needed. And there's some interesting stuff that I was able to run across in doing this, and some of them are obviously directly themed for the holidays, and some of them are a little bit of a stretch, but anyway, I did want to get a good cross-section. Some of these photographers you're going to know, they're going to be household names, and others, there's a couple images in here that are basically vernacular snapshot images that just happen to be vintage that I thought were particularly interesting. So anyway, I'm going to kick this off with Julia Margaret Cameron. We talked about her actually was a little over a year ago. We were doing a series on pictorialism, and she's one of the early pictorialists, and this image has a direct correlation, we're talking about at that time that photographers were trying to become or being taken more seriously in the fine art world. And one of the things they were doing was trying to learn from the past masters and not just make this a snapshot affair of documenting just scenes. And Julia Margaret Cameron was one of the first people to really start doing sets and this really, lyrical kind of sense to her compositions. And this was, as she is noted, as being inspired by the Raphael Sistine Chapel pieces with the two cherubs at the bottom. It's not a direct copy, and she definitely has her own spin on it and was incredibly ahead of her time. An amazing photographer and, like I said, one of the early pictorialists. This is a little bit of a stretch image here, but this image is kind of interesting to me. This is the famous French photographer Brassai, who is most known for his night pictures of Paris. And, Hungarian-born and was known as a French photographer and went by only one name of Brassai, and this is the Champs-Élysées in Paris. And for me, this had a particularly this is going to be a sentimental. I don't do this on the show much, but this has kind of a personal connection. A few years ago, I was invited to speak at a conference in Paris that went down in December. And if you have never been to Paris at Christmas time and seen Champs-Élysées, it's essentially this big stretch of road that leads all the way down to the l'Arc de Triomphe. And as you're walking down the road, it is vendor after vendor and just Christmas items, ornaments, trees, foods, cheeses, drinks, you name it, mulled wine. And if there's ever something that's equated with the holiday season, it's just beautiful and fabulous, it is this event. And I found this Versailles image, and I'm not even sure this is taken at Christmas time. It probably is not, but it is Champs-Élysées. And for me personally, it echoes the holiday season somewhat pretty clearly to me, being particularly a vintage photograph as well. This is an image that I was not familiar with that I found that is just a beautiful image. This was courtesy of the Amon Carter Museum, which is in Fort Worth, Texas, down the street from me. And Amon Carter Museum has a wonderful photography collection, and this is something from their collection. This is Clara Cipperell, The First Christmas, and it's gelatin silver print on tissue circa 1927. And you can kind of see, it probably is not going to pick up very well in the video. This is already a scan on the computer, but that this print is actually made on tissue paper, which gives it a real beautiful translucent quality to it. And you can kind of see a little bit of that texture up in the upper left-hand side of this. And it's a simple picture of a baby looking at a tree. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's not a photography that I'm very familiar with personally, but it's a gorgeous image from the late 20s. Some of the photographers that are going to be a little more known to you guys, I purposely went looking for Cartier-Bresson to see if there was anything that he had done. This is Christmas Eve. I think I labeled it in the caption. This is Christmas Eve. Firewood, Christmas Eve, Scano, Italy, 1953. And, of course, we see maybe not one of the greatest examples of Cartier-Bresson, but definitely the compositional motifs of, the group of odds. You have kind of the golden mean and the way the shapes start forming together, and a lot of these lines that are shaped in here with the curved path that leads down the staircase there. So a lot of the classic dimensions that you see Bresson doing. We have talked about Bresson on the show before, and like I said, this isn't a classic Bresson shot, but even mediocre Bresson still pretty amazing. And I'm not to say this is mediocre, but interesting image nonetheless. Another one that is interesting that came off the Amon Carter website was this kind of simple shot from 1928. This is a gelatin dry plate negative from Carl Strauss. And it's the odd thing, too, is you're going to notice as we go through a lot of these, there's a lot of images that are taken in California, which is known for beautiful weather and probably not the most holiday seasonal thing. So there's some attraction that I think photographers have to California in kind of the irony of what is Christmas time. Anyway, interesting image, just this beautiful high contrast thing of looking through a window, kind of early street social documentary photography in a sense. Another one from California, and this is an unknown. This is just a snapshot, but it's of a military uniformed gentleman standing in front of a Santa that I just thought had a fun vibe to it, being of the era that it was. Also of that era, and I do not know who the photographer on this, but this is Alfred Hitchcock's Christmas card, and I am not sure about the year on this, but very funny, and obviously with the screaming children and the horse following him behind. I wish I knew who the photographer was, because I think this is a very humorous and fun image, particularly for holidays. And I know that I'm sitting here, kind of curating over the top and analyzing these images, and this is just meant to be fun. Another beautiful image, and this is, I could not find a photographer to credit on here, but a really cool image that kind of, brings early American imagery, maybe mixed with a little bit of pictorialism with the textures on this image, with this kid hanging out with a Christmas tree, literally. It's like almost knocking him over because the juxtaposition of the kid and the tree. The interesting also, and obviously leads to the fact you could tell it's an early pictures because of the depth of field that's very shallow in this. And, ISO was not really fast back in the early days, and a lot of times to shoot candid street photos like this, you did need to use very wide ISOs. Nowadays, we have higher ISO, and if you shoot this wide open, it'll risk blowing out. So it's a different style and different way we're used to seeing images in this day and age. Some other fun stuff. I just thought this was neat, and not necessarily particularly Christmassy, but since we're all photo geeks watching this, that this is my Christmas gift to you, I guess. The delivery truck, and again, an unknown. Circa 1930 was the best I could do on a credit on this, and it's just snapshots of the vernacular. And here's another one of a Kodak brownie and a Christmas tree that kind of gave me an idea. I would love to get a bunch of $5 Kodak brownies and hang them in a tree. I think that would be awesome. Moving on to some different stuff, I do have kind of one wild card in here. This is a contemporary photograph. And this is Peter Garfield. This is Untitled Christmas Tree, somewhere between 1996 and 1998. And you're starting to see, being incredibly more recent and a huge juxtaposition, a lot of these other images, this kind of Fantasia type thing that you see a lot in, we've talked about Keith Carter on this show. He's one of my favorites. And this is kind of reminiscent of something you might see Keith do in that style of high concept where you have this floating Christmas tree that's taken a piece of the earth out with it that's floating above a house. Kind of a fantasy kind of thing, maybe even creepy on some levels, but I think it's an excellent image. It's very beautiful, and I just really love this soft focus, kind of disorienting blur that follows it. Very cool stuff. Onto some other images, and this was a really wacky one that I found that I actually wasn't familiar with. This is Ouija, and if you're not familiar with Ouija, that was his professional name, and I'm blanking out on his real name right now. Ouija was a very famous photojournalist in New York, and he was essentially a crime scene photographer. And a lot of his shots are quite disturbing. They're usually of dead bodies. Most of his work is done at night. And Ouija is very significant in that he basically brought something morbid like crime scene photography into this realm of fine art and is really known as being one of the great photographers of his generation, and specifically for that, for being able to document the gruesome, and obviously it turns into art. Now this is an image actually taken on Thanksgiving, and I believe it was 1940, that's correct. So November 21st, 1940, I assume getting ready for a parade, this giant blow-up Santa, which has this galumphing cartoon type characteristic to it with these little guys at the bottom that are inflating him. Anyway, I think this is a brilliant, genius image, and I don't know why I'm not familiar with this. I hadn't seen it before, but it was fun to run across these. This was actually a weird one to research because, when you Google Christmas photos and stuff, you got to get a lot more specific than that to find material. This is Charles Pratt, New York City, 1962. I like this image just simply because I think it really falls in line with a lot of the guys we've talked about in the last couple episodes, even though it's not in color. And we have talked about Saul Leader, which led us to William Eggleston, as well as we talked a little bit about William Christenberry and Fred Herzog, the wonderful Canadian photographer. And some of the stuff those guys were doing in color, roughly the same era, 60s. This is a black and white image, but what he does that's in common with those photographers is this kind of playing with the reflections and what's going on in the window here of the store, and this kind of blurred figure walking by with a crass look. And anyway, beautiful image, just kind of slice of life, but I thought it was very cool. I'm working up into my favorites for this. This is another one. This is I blank on the title. This is another Ouija shot, Miracle on Hollywood Boulevard. Coincidentally, I chose not to put them in here because they were fairly gruesome. There are two shots of Ouija with crime scene photos near Christmas trees, which kind of seemed like a bizarre thing to put in with the rest of them, but worth looking up on your own if you're interested. I might go ahead and add them to this set later. But rather than snow, we see rain and this, kind of bizarre Christmas tree up at the top. And this relates to another image that I'm going to show you that is a Diane Arbus image. And what I like about these two images that both these photographers, who are very different in what they do, were able to accomplish. This is the Diane Arbus image, and this is from the 60s as well. And it's a living room with a Christmas tree in it. But they really embody a sense of 1960s Americana, where both were very radical at the time, in that they were photographers that, rather than trying to do stuff that had classical composition and a lot of what the preconceived notions of what beauty was supposed to be in art or photography, either one, they were simply documenting what was there at the time. They were, what I think they did very successfully, I don't know if they knew it at the time, but really captured the essence of a vibe, particularly now when you have TV shows like Mad Men and things that explore that era and that aesthetic with the clothing and the mid-century kind of decor and the funky TV in the back with the stilts on it. And I love this bizarre Christmas tree that is too tall for the room, that manages to crush into the ceiling. The bizarre sun clock next to it. The thing is loaded down with tinsel, which we did when I was a kid. It was basically putting tinsel all over the tree, which was another strange practice. But anyway, I think both of these images, the Diane Arbus and the Ouija, both do a wonderful job of capturing this campy kind of Americana, sign of the times kind of thing. It's not really what people perceive as being, this beautiful holiday necessarily. I think there's a tremendous beauty to these, but I think they're very interesting on those. Like I said, you don't go looking for compositional rules in these things. That's not what either one of these photographers were necessarily about. And I say that because on somewhere, I can't remember, it was either YouTube or Reddit or something, I was a little bit criticized in the last episode for not explaining Eggleston a little more clinically, I guess. And Eggleston, you're not going to get clinical out of. If you're looking for composition things that are kind of set standards and rules, these kinds of photos don't fall into these, but they're beautiful for other reasons. And this one too, I'm rambling on about these, but the Diane Arbus is particularly interesting to me because when I started working at the Dallas Museum of Art, we have one of these in the collection, and I didn't know it, and it was out, and they put it on the wall around the corner from my office, and I nearly freaked out. I had a Mapplethorpe in this, and some beautiful stuff. And I kind of have a fondness for this image because of that. And when I first saw it, I was like, what the heck is this? And it's not even what Diane Arbus is really known for. She's more known for her portraits and kind of the freak element and stuff like that. But it's such an amazing image. It's one that I love. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. And these are the last three are all Diane Arbus. And these are the ones that several months ago when I was doing my research with Diane Arbus for the show that we did specifically on her work that I ran across and decided to save for a little Art of Photography Christmas special here. So without any further ado, and these are probably in order of my favorites, but the Cranky Santa, which relates to another image in a moment. These were all obviously, Diane Arbus at the complete apex mastery of the square format and the bizarre portrait. I don't know what is so bizarre and interesting to me about gentlemen in Santa suits, but they make a wonderful subject. Here's another one that Diane did. Here's Santa and wife, and I also love the fact that I'm not sure. It looks like this may have been shot through a mirror or something because of this strange texture at the bottom of the image. I'm not sure on that, but it is weird, and I'd love it. And then finally, I think my favorite image that I will use to sum up this entire episode, but the four Santas standing outside this building with an arch over the top that looks like it's passing for the North Pole via Utah or something. Anyway, amazing images. This is a little dark, the one that I found. I think the image is supposed to be a hair lighter, but it works well in high contrast. So, we'll thank Deanne for the inspiration for all of this show, and particularly the bizarre Santas at the end. I will put links to all this. Go to the Pinterest page, and you can go view these yourself and steal them and put them on your own boards and whatever you want to do to bookmark. But that is a selection of Christmas imagery, and this is something kind of funky we haven't done before, and I hope you found this interesting. So anyway, that once again, folks, is the 12 Days of Christmas. So this has been a lot different than what we normally do on the show, and this is a little bit lighter and just kind of random and kind of fun in a lot of sense, just because we're doing a themed episode here. But I hope this has inspired you on some level, not only just as you are looking at work, and I hope you guys do your own collections in Pinterest and things of that nature, but I think on another thing, personally for me, we get towards the end of the year, and we all do various things. We're all very busy throughout the year, and generally most people, at least whether you celebrate holidays or not, take some downtime and some relaxing time. And for me as a photographer, this is a time where I finally get to go shoot some personal work. And so I really look forward to doing that a lot and just being able to relax and do whatever. And sometimes I come up with stuff, sometimes I don't. But I think for me personally, just in going and putting together this little collection, it kind of inspired me in a few ways to start thinking about things a little bit different during the holidays. So anyway, once again, guys, I want to say thanks for the whole year. This has been awesome. We will do one more show for the year right before New Year's. I'm not taking a week off. I will be diligent. And we will kind of wrap up the year. We've done a lot of the analytical photography lit kinds of episodes looking at work of well-known photographers, and I want to next year start getting back into some of the how-tos, the tutorials, nuts and bolts, tips and tricks kinds of things as well. So we've got a whole lot coming up, but we will do one more show this year before we get into that. And it's been awesome. I've had a great year, and I want to thank you guys for watching and supporting the show. So once again, guys, this has been The Art of Photography. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, whatever it is that you celebrate. I hope you're with your family, with your friends, with your loved ones, and that you're having a great one. And I hope you remember to watch The Art of Photography next week, because we will be back. So anyway, once again, guys, this has been The Art of Photography. Thank you for watching. We'll see you later.